Hi everyone, welcome back to Live Darts. We are here at the Boylesports Grand Slam of Darts in Wolverhampton. Bit of different content for you. We've got Head of Media, Dave Allen. Dave, known each other for over a year now, 18 months, so we thought you'd finally get you on, just so the darting public can see something different of what's going on in the darting world.
Yep, it's weird being on this side of the camera rather than putting the players on this side of the camera. So
I was going to say, boots on the other foot.
I'm not used to having the lights and the cameras pointing at me.
For those that don't know, you're head of all media with the PDC.
Yep.
Challenging job, I'm guessing, especially in the modern world.
Yeah, challenging but really exciting as well. You know, things have changed a lot in the last 3, 4, 5 years. You know, especially, well, probably the last decade, where social media has gone from not really existing to being one of the most powerful tools for everybody nowadays. So it's really changed on that side. And obviously, as the sport's grown, the number of media demands have grown as well. So yeah, challenging, but you know, I'm really lucky to be a part of what's happened in the sport for the last 15 years.
I said 15 years with the PDC is a long time for anyone, so you've seen the good, the bad and the ugly, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I look back to when I first joined in 2004, and back then there wasn't the Premier League. The World Championship was still at the Circus Tavern, and we had 5 TV tournaments during the year: the World Championship, World Match Play, World Grand Prix, UK Open and the old Las Vegas Desert Classic. So to have gone from that and probably only about £3 million prize money on the whole circuit back then to where we are now as a fully professional sport with obviously global tours worldwide. We've got the development tour and challenge tour leading up to the pro tour, so that structure that's come in over that period, it's been an amazing journey for me to be a part of that, and to see the growth and how everything's progressed from where we were to where we are now in great arenas like this, and going around to Europe's biggest arenas. We've got the World Series as well, and 13-14 million pounds prize money, and that's something that's growing year on year as well.
I'm guessing you were a darts fan before you took the job with the PDC.
Yeah. But before this, I was a sports journalist as well. But I'd cover bits of darts, but I'd watched darts when I was younger. I'd been to PDC events when I was younger, so I've been up to the UK Open. I've been to the World Championship, the World Match Play as well as a fan. So yeah, I'd always kind of watched it, knew some of the characters, and when the job came up in 2004, it was a little bit of I moved down. I'm originally from Leeds, so I moved down to Essex, and we said we'd give it 6 months and see how it went, and 15 years later here I am, and it's fantastic. I've obviously settled down in Essex now, but settled into the job as well, and it's wonderful job to be in, and a wonderful company to work for as well.
I guess the transition just from Yorkshire to Essex took some time just in itself, but it's two completely conflicting counties and ways of life.
Yeah, completely. And one of the things back then, I didn't really know too many people when I made that jump down, and I hadn't actually lived away when I was younger for university, because I started work full time at 18, and went from there. So actually, when I took the move, I didn't know too many people, but luckily around that time, Colin Lloyd was world #1. So all the tournaments that I was going to, it tended to be that Colin was going, and also Rod Harrington was his manager, but also still at the back end of his playing career, and as a PDC director. So I travelled a lot with those guys in the first couple of years, and that probably really helped me to settle in. Rod and Colin have been great with me throughout that time. So when I wasn't actually travelling away with other staff members, I was with them. So they helped me settle in Essex, and house there, and really settle down now, and it's a lovely place to live when we are at home.
Again, have you got a favourite? We'll do the fan side of it first that you touched on. Have you got a favourite darting memory as a fan that really sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, probably for me it was being as a fan at the Painter Taylor World Championship final at the Circus Tavern back in 2004. I was down there with now Sky Sports commentator Rod Studd, but that was just one of those classic sporting moments, and I'm lucky I've enjoyed a lot of great sporting moments in my time, and that's probably up there forever in the top 5. The tension. Kevin was fantastic that day, and I still remember the atmosphere around the Circus Tavern. It was a really special night. So on a personal level, that's one that will always sit with me. Obviously, the greatness of Phil Taylor, seeing him win a World Championship live, but Kevin so close to beating him on that day, and then luckily for me, the way the world turned 12 months later, there I was working on the event.
Again, the Circus Tavern, it was one of those old smoky venues, wasn't it? Very low ceiling, very intimidating for players, because it was very loud. Now I remember going there as a kid, and it was nothing like Alexandra Palace, completely different but unique atmospheres in both ways.
Yeah, and it absolutely was brilliant for the PDC for that first 15, 16 years that we held the World Championship there, because it was the perfect size for what we had then. But at the time when I joined, you could see that we were getting bigger crowds year on year, and it eventually became a full sellout venue. And obviously the final game there was the Barney Taylor final, which was an absolute epic. But at that point, we'd probably already outgrown it as a venue for that tournament. We obviously took other tournaments back there in the next few years, but for that tournament it was probably the right time for it to move to Alexandra Palace. And actually you now look at what Alexandra Palace has become for the World Championship across 2.5 weeks over that festive period, and and that's just a phenomenon in British sport. But the venue of Alexandra Palace lends itself to that, because we can have the fans village, so you've got that area when the weather's not great, people can be in there. You've got all the different activities that you can do. We've got hospitality areas, obviously a big enough media centre. Back in the day at the Circus Tavern, our media centre was a porter cabin just outside the venue, and that worked great because of the number of people we had there. But obviously now we have probably somewhere in the region of 150 media will come. We've got live TV crews from Dutch TV, German TV, other television stations, obviously all the media that come along with it. So we have to be able to accommodate those people comfortably, which Alexandra Palace allows us to do from my side of it.
Going back to the greatest '07 final, what was that like being there working on it? Because to start with, it looked as if it was going to be a landslide, didn't it? When did you get the sense, hang on a minute, this is turning into something special? Because I'm guessing things like that you don't forget.
Yeah, you probably have, as you say, Phil went 3-0 up, and I think everybody was kind of expecting something similar. So I think it was the year before when Phil swept aside Peter Manley, and that was done in about an hour and a quarter. So there was a little bit of that early on, but I think Raymond started to get a couple of sets back, and you could see he had the bit between his teeth. And yeah, you could just sense there was some magic. But I think that whole year as well, Raymond had come across, and in many ways at that time he was the missing piece in the jigsaw, in terms of Phil had had rivals, but he didn't necessarily have anyone who came and took the challenge to him like Raymond did over that 12 months from coming in. And you probably knew that because of the record Raymond had had in the previous year or so, that it was possible. And when he started to get a couple of sets back, you could sense it building, and ended up being a 3-hour epic that we all know. And yeah, obviously a game that helped to catapult us into the limelight. Over 1 million people watching it on Sky. Ended up being the last game at the Circus Tavern, defining moment for Barney in his career as well. So it was a real special one. And even today, 12, 13 years on, people still talk about that day.
Can you still remember the first time you walked into Alexandra Palace as well and thought, we've arrived here in the big time, we're selling out a huge arena now?
Yeah, well, actually, we'd held the Premier League at Alexandra Palace before we took the World Championship there, so I think that was 2008. So we'd kind of experienced that before, but yeah, I think probably the first and second years when Alexandra Palace was really bedding in, it was new for everybody, and it was quite special. The first year John Part and Kirk Shepherd made the final, and you could see it was a huge move for the players, because the stage was probably 3 times bigger than anything else we did. It was 120 feet wide, as opposed to being the Circus Tavern, which was probably 30 feet wide. So that was a huge change for the players, and I think it took everybody a couple of years just to settle down and bed into it. But I think Taylor and Barney had a rematch there, I think in the '09 final. And that was probably the moment you thought this venue, this tournament has really taken that next step to being established at Ali Pali. And you now look at it and you couldn't imagine the World Championship anywhere else than there. It's become such a great venue, and actually the venue as it's laid out at the moment works perfectly for us. I know a lot of people say, well, what about moving to the Great Hall? You could potentially increase the capacity, but maybe that's the right place for it. You look at snooker's got the Crucible, tennis has got Wimbledon. Maybe this is just right for us.
Again, you've seen a lot come and go. I'm guessing you saw the end of an era with the players that, when the split happened from the BDO, you saw them coming to the end of their career. Then that middle one, and now you're seeing a new generation come through as well. What's that like, seeing the different generations of dart players come and go? Yeah,
it's been fantastic for me, and I know I was really lucky when I first came in that as a kid I'd watched people like Dennis Priestley, and then and got to work closely with him. So things like that for me on a personal level, I was maybe a little bit in awe at first when I first joined, but really lucky to be there for some of their great moments towards the back ends of their career. And then I'm really fortunate that Michael van Gerwen, Adrian Lewis, James Wade, I've been around since really the start of their careers and seen them go on to achieve such great things, and that's been very personally satisfying that seeing Adrian Lewis going from being the teenager who started on the tour to lifting the World Championship trophy, Michael van Gerwen from being this kind of blur of green in a hotel venue in Holland back in 2006 time, to being where he is now, you know, that's been brilliant for me. And then, you know, I worked obviously very closely with Tommy Cox, Rod Harrington, Matt, our chief executive, you know, in terms of the structure of the tour and bringing in things like the development tour. So in the early days of the development tour, when we were running those, and you know, seeing some of the young guys who now have gone on to establish themselves at the top, but you know, back then they were playing on the development tour in Pro Tour venues on a Saturday night when we used to do those, and you know, seeing people obviously here this week, Ryan Harrington won one of the tour events, but you know, Nathan Aspinall, you know, first seeing him as a development tour player, Dimitri Vandenberg as well. So you know, it's been a great journey, and the way that the tour's structured now, you can see that next generation ready to come through. And I think the next 3, 4, 5 years, people like Luke Humphreys, Ted Evitts, you know, there's a host of young players from across the continent as well wanting to make that breakthrough, and you know, that's due a lot to the hard work of those people in helping get that structure over the last kind of 10 years or so.
Again, I'm going to touch on Phil. Obviously, you saw Phil at his absolute best. What was that like, just watching a genius at work? And I say genius because it's a very overused word in sport these days, but I don't think it is in this case, because he elevated the bar to somewhere we didn't think it could go. Yeah,
in many ways he pushed things further. And I remember, you know, back then averaging 100 was a big deal, and Phil was obviously the one that helped push it to needing to average 100 regularly to be competitive in tournaments. And he was the real figurehead for darts when, you know, when I joined. You know, he obviously, Colin was the world number one, but Phil was, I think at that time, 11-time world champion, went on to win 5 more, and you know, he was the one that really captured the public's imagination. Hitting the 2-9 darters, you know, that took him another step further as well. Got him on the Sports Personality of the Year nominations, you know, and things like that. You know, people don't always appreciate what Phil did to help promote the sport, as well as what he did on the hockey in terms of raising the standard. And that's not to, you know, to say anything against the contribution of other players, but you know, for a long time there, Phil was the man that really helped push us to where we are now. And I think the players that, you know, that we see here this week and that are on the tour now are really reaping the benefits of what Phil helped, you know, to do, because he pushed that standard up. And obviously now Michael Van Gerwen's taken it regularly to another level, and it's now at a standard where you're seeing 110 plus averages on a more regular basis. But I think had Phil not pushed it that far in the first place, we may not be where we are now. And I think, you know, we're all grateful for him. He was fantastic working with me over those years, and you know, he's obviously gone off into retirement, and a well-earned retirement, and hopefully he looks back with pride on where the PDC is.
You touched on 2 things there: the green blur of Michael Van Gerwen as a kid to the Michael Van Gerwen we see now. In that middle period, when did you sense the rivalry was developing with him and Phil? Because they had probably 3 years of darting from the gods where they pushed each other to the absolute limit, didn't they?
Yeah, well, funny enough, actually, I'd probably go back to when Michael was 16, and I saw him over in the Netherlands. At that point we had some cross-code tournaments, the World Darts Trophy and the RDL. I think it was the World Darts Trophy in 06 or 07, when, I think it was 06, where Phil first played Michael on the big stage, and you could see then there was something special about it. Michael was fearless back then, and he really went at Phil, and you knew there was something special there. And probably after that, Michael had his little down period, and then, but you could see then, probably from just after Michael won the World Grand Prix in 2012, we came to Wolverhampton to the Civic for the Grand Slam, and Michael beat Phil I think in that tournament on his way to reaching the final. And I think that was the moment when you knew it was back. So we had that initial period when you could see there could be something special, and then Michael came back, and you almost knew from the moment Michael on stage that day shook Phil's hand, and there was a real look in his eye of intent. And I think that was something to say, I'm a different Michael to the one you've had for the last 5 or 6 years. And he beat him there, and it was, you know, it was fantastic for that next 4 or 5 years before Phil retired. They had that rivalry, and it was great to see. And obviously, you know, other people now coming on to challenge Michael as well.
Phil had the almost fairy tale goodbye as well, didn't he? Winning the match play, that was special. But in the build up to his goodbye in the final, when he just kept winning and winning and winning, what was that buzz like in and around the press room, and with obviously the PDC? It was like, this could be the ultimate fairy tale here.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable, really. And you know, for us, we never knew what was going to be his last game. You know, he came into that tournament, so you know, it could have been the first round, it could have been the second round, and he did keep getting over those hurdles. And I think possibly we were kind of almost ready for it, because we'd seen what he did at the World Match Play that year. But for him to go so close, and you know, in many ways it was the passing of the baton to Rob Cross, because when Phil won his first World Championship, it was Eric Bristow who was the greatest at the time, and that was almost, you know, bookending his career. And for Phil, you know, that was the start of Phil's career. Almost bookended it with passing the mantle on to Rob Cross, who's obviously now gone on to win a couple more big TV events and go on to world #2 and challenging Michael. So it was maybe fitting in that sense. Obviously, it would have been the ultimate fairy tale if Phil had taken the trophy, and we may never have got the Sid Waddell trophy back.
Again, to go touch on like your media stuff now before we wrap this up. Like you say, when you first started, you were the one that did everything, weren't you? Where now you've got a team, a very good team around you as well, getting well with all the guys. What was that like, and that transition from just you to now being in charge of a full-blown team and everything that goes with it? Because I've seen just this week as well in the hotel, you're on the go from 8 AM till 1 AM in the morning.
Yeah, look, there's no complaints, and I'm part of a great team now. There's 4, 5, 6 of us around the media team now on the big events, and we can rotate around as well. But yeah, for a long time there was just myself, but we didn't really need many more, you know, more people than that, because social media didn't exist. We were probably one of the forerunners in doing video interviews and getting those out back in around 2011, 2012. And but then when social media came in, we did realise that, you know, that was becoming then a full-time job for another person. And now, you know, now we've got a team where we've got Josh on the website, Luke on the videos, Lewis on the social media. You know, Jamie helps with us as well. And around other tournaments, some of the bigger tournaments like the World Championship, we'll have other members of that coming in and helping us as well. And we can rotate around so everybody's not doing every day. And that's just the way that the world is now. You know, news tends to break on social media faster than it does anywhere else. So obviously we have to be at the forefront of that, and it's obviously an excellent marketing tool for us as well in terms of communicating everything that we do in the PDC. So it's a really important thing, and we like to think that we take that, you know, really seriously. We've got the guys who, you know, can work on that, and you know, I'm lucky to be part of a great team. You know, everyone gets on really well. Obviously we've got a good relationship with the media, and we try to be welcoming to everybody, because, you know, we're still a developing sport. You know, we appreciate the coverage that people like you are giving us, and obviously helping to give a platform that puts the personalities of the players out there, because we've got some fantastic players here. You know, we want them, you know, to come across well to the public, because the fans who are coming here to events like this, that's part of what they're here for. They're here because they, you know, they can resonate with those players, their characters that they get along with, you know, and we want to help push that.
Last one from me. You've seen it from a little seed, and Barry's drive is like nothing I've ever seen. 72 years old and still at it relentlessly. Where do you think darts is going to be in 5 years? Because he's just relentless, and obviously you've seen it firsthand. How big can the sport get him with his guidance?
I think, you know, we've still got another layer to go at the top. You know, I think the aim eventually is to have a fully global circuit for the professional stars. Obviously the World Series is a great platform for developing that at the moment, and I can see, you know, that developing, and also the kind of the European Tour, Pro Tour level developing as well. You know, to give these stars, because they're absolutely brilliant at what they do. They're getting great rewards for it as well, but having that professional circuit worldwide, I think, is what we want to push towards now. You know, we're starting to see the seeds globally through the affiliated tours that we run. Especially Asia's a huge growth market, but you see Australia, New Zealand, North America, Scandinavia, players are developing from those countries now in Europe, where the European Tour goes to, and I think they will continue to grow over the next 5 years. And yeah, hopefully at the top end of the sport we can continue to grow, you know, to becoming a fully global game.
Dave, pleasure. Thanks for taking time out with us.
Pleasure. Thanks, Phil. Cheers, mate. Thank you.